Hey y'all, my name is Celeste. I'm a therapist from Boston. I have an amazing episode lined up for you. Don't forget, if you want to catch the visuals, I stream my podcast live, yes, live in front of a live audience on YouTube, Facebook, and Periscope. All you got to do is search Celeste the Therapist and you can find me. I'm always talking to somebody that's doing something to empower the lives of others. So check out this story. Let me know what you think. If you enjoy my amazing guest, make sure you give her a follow. If you want to support me, share this episode with somebody that you love. You can also rate me on Apple Podcasts. That will help boost my podcast up on the mental health charts. And you can also follow me on all social media platforms. You can support me on Patreon. Or you can just go to my website to learn more about me, celestetherapist.com. Let's get into this amazing episode.
It wasn't even just the fact that he died. It happened so fast. I didn't have a chance to process. I'm fine with change as long as you give me time to process, which is not how life works. We all know that. But as a child, that is my first memory of you don't get to have time to process life. Life is just going to happen. And so instead of responding to it happening, I reacted. And how I reacted was, I feel hurt. Everybody else is going to feel hurt. Everybody else is going to feel hurt. Because I remember that my father was the one, a lot of the time when I would question about my cleft or get down about it, he would be like, it's fine. You're going to be okay. This happened for a reason. Well, that voice was gone and I was mad about it. So everybody was going to be mad.
365 days, but I treat every day like it's my last. I'm only concerned with building on the future, cause I can't change my past. Positive vibes for positive lives. She just giving you that truth and shifting your mind. It's more mental than you realize. It's up to you to take control, cause this world is cold and negativity gon' take its toll. Now we've been told any day could be your last. I'm embracing every moment and I cherish every laugh, every smile, every hug, every kiss, every touch, every person in my life that I care about and love. But wait, maybe I'm getting too emotional. That's exactly what they say you ain't supposed to do. Suppress your feelings, never talk about your pain. Can't appreciate the sun without acknowledging it rains, right? That's right. So this a moment of clarity. And make sure you always protect your energy. You stay focused and your life gon' be lit. And you are now rocking with Celeste the Therapist. Let's go.
If this is your first time watching me or you're watching me on the replay, thank you so much for watching me. I truly appreciate you. I come on and I talk to people who are doing things to empower the lives of others. And the whole goal behind me doing this is to help you kind of shift the way you think. I feel like a lot of times we get really stuck in our thought process and we don't know where to go. But I think there's so many people out in this universe that are doing so many amazing things. And it starts to let you know that you're not alone. So I talk to people that are dealing with different things and who have been through different things, and they come on and they share our story. So I have a really special guest, but before I bring my guest on, I just wanted to tell you about this community that I started. So Shifting the Way You Think is a 3-month membership-based community that's going to restart in January. And this is a community where we are utilizing this book called Healing the Inner Child to work on understanding our inner child and also creating mindfulness and ways to cope with the things that we are finding ourselves struggling with. A lot of times the lens that we tend to look at life under is our trauma lens. And so because we look at life from our trauma lens, unfortunately, we find ourselves feeling like we're reliving the trauma over and over again without understanding, like, how do I get out? And so a lot of times people will say, like, this is just the way I am. This is just the way life is. But I'm a firm believer that life doesn't have to keep being this vicious cycle of pain. And I always tell people when we run away from suffering, all we do is continue to allow the suffering to continue, right? When you're running away from your fear, your pain, what's happening? You just stay in a cycle of fear and pain. But if you actually start to face that fear and pain and face that trauma, you're actually going to start to have power over that trauma. So I'm sure my amazing guest can attest to that. I'm going to add her on to the stream. Her name is Iva.
Yes, the entire time I'm like, yes. So I can completely relate to everything that you just said. Yes.
Yes. So I have the amazing Iva on, and I want you to tell people what you do.
So hello, everyone. I'm Iva Ballou. I am a motivational speaker and a confidence coach, specifically for those who are affected with a cleft palate or cleft lip. For those that do not know what a cleft lip or palate is, it's actually the highest birth defect. 1 in 700 babies in the US are born with either a cleft palate or lip. And I myself was born with a bilateral cleft lip and palate. I've had well over 30 corrective surgeries. And a lot of times, children who have it, whether they are now adults or even babies that they've had more advanced surgeries, but they still do have cognitive and social differences and anxieties around their cleft palate. And so I coach them into feeling more confident in themselves.
So when it comes to the cleft palate, you would say that people are clefties, right?
Correct. We're called clefties.
Clefties. And so it sounds like there's a range of ways that people are affected when they're born with the.
Correct.
Okay.
Correct. So the cleft lip is exactly as it sounds. It means that in utero, the baby is born and the lip is not fully developed. It might mean that it's not developed on this side or this side. The way that I was born, it was actually both sides were not fused together.
Okay.
If you touch the roof of your tongue, of your mouth, like, when your peanut butter gets stuck in the mouth, I was not born with that. Right.
Oh, okay. Wait, that's why the cleft is because you didn't have this thing up to top that we have?
Correct. It's called the palate. That top part of the roof of your mouth is called your palate. And so people who are born with cleft palates mean it can be a small thing or it can be an open, like 10 centimeters, 12 centimeters. Mine was completely open, which explains why I've had so many corrective surgeries, just like there are many others who have had a lot of surgeries. And there are actually some famous people that people don't even know have cleft lips or palates. Joaquin Phoenix has a hairline, which is not a common term that they like to use anymore. It cannot be used outside of the cleft community. Jesse Jackson, people don't often know, and because he always keeps his mustache, but if you were to cut off the mustache, you would see the scarring. But yeah.
Okay, I just learned a lot just now.
I try not to overload people with, because it's like,
it doesn't feel overwhelming. You said peanut butter, and I was like, okay, I get it. Yeah. I do try to scrape it off, so I know exactly what you're talking about. Now, you're born and you have all of these surgeries, and there's this physical aspect that people can see, right? Everybody has. What's your tagline? Tell people what your tagline about disability.
So my tagline is everyone has a disability, just those born with a cleft palate is more visible, but everybody has a shortcoming in some way, whether it be internally or externally that you're trying to overcome.
So now you're dealing with this external situation that everyone can see, and kids can be so cruel when they see kids that are different from them. Tell me a little bit about how the fact that people were able to physically see what was taking place amongst all the surgeries and how that affected you.
That, Celeste, is honestly like I don't want to say crazy, but it's what I remember so vividly about my childhood, because at home with my family and friends, I was loved, I was embraced. I was able to be this confident, spunky girl. But at school, it was different. It was, I remember how we talk about now the buzzword about shrinking yourself. I really did do that because I did not want to draw any more attention to myself, because if I did, I knew someone was going to say something about my cleft. Someone was going to say something about the way I looked. There are times where I didn't even see it coming. Like, this is something that I have vividly stuck in my head. Coming back from a band recital, because my parents were very much like, you are going to do everything else that a normal child will do. So I played an instrument. I played the flute, not well, but I played it. And so I'm coming back from the band recital and I'm walking down the hall, and there are 2 third grade classes on either side. And as I'm walking down the hall, they start laughing and pointing and just taunting me. And you have to think, I'm in the 5th grade, so I'm 10? That is a hard thing for a child to do. And I can just remember, Iva, you were upset, you don't cry. But you're picking and you're laughing at me about something that I have no control over. I have no control over that.
Just hearing that story, I mean, I know that was one of many stories that you had to deal with. And from what you're saying, at the home, you actually had the opposite. Where your parents actually embraced you, loved you, and told you can do anything anybody else can do. Just whatever's going on, you got this, right?
Yeah.
Do you feel like that helped you endure some of the trauma that you had to go through during that time?
Yes, I actually just talked to one of my parents the other day because her child is it's very similar. She's like at home, she's very confident. She's very, very confident because that's what they're instilling in her. But she's like, at school, I think that she's a little bit more quiet. And I said, continue to do what you're doing, because what happens is you have to have the child have a reset. You want her to have that reset memory or that recall memory of a time where she felt confident. She has a base of when I'm with my family, or there are moments and times where I can pick out, I was confident, I felt brave, I felt proud of myself. She knows where to go back to that. So when those feelings come up as an adult, and as we're going through this transition, she'll be like, okay, that's a good feeling. I want to continue on with that.
Yes, I love that you say that, because, as a therapist, when I talk to people and I go in their childhood, a lot of people, a lot of their confidence and lack of confidence was due to a lot of bullying that they tried to dismiss or try not to think about because it was so hard to actually deal with. And so what you're giving for parents as an example, I think is good. It's, for people to kind of hold on to.
Yeah. Yeah. And that's one thing, like, I'm always like, we start with that. We start with the getting real. And like, what is one moment of confidence that you can remember? It does any span of your life. Like, just talk about that.
That's good. I love that.
And really feel that.
Now you're in the home, and then, you have a loving environment, but then at 14, your dad passes away. What did that do to you when you had this amazing person being that support for you during this hard time?
It wasn't even just the fact that he died. It happened so fast. I didn't have a chance to process. I'm fine with change as long as you give me time to process, which is not how life works. We all know that. But that as a child, that is my first memory of, you don't get to have time to process life. Life is just going to happen. And so instead of responding to it happening, I reacted. And how I reacted was, I feel hurt. Everybody else is going to feel hurt. Everybody else is going to feel hurt. Because I remember that my father was the one, a lot of the time when I would question about my cleft or get down about it, he would be like, it's fine. You're going to be okay. This happened for a reason. Well, that voice was gone and I was mad about it. So everybody was going to be mad. So for a period of time, I want to say at least 10 to 12 years, I was a bully. And when I tell people that, they're like, how are you a bully? How can you be? I either was a bully to myself, because that is a real thing. And another way of saying that, or the buzzword of these days, is your inner talk. Listen to your inner talk. If your inner talk is always telling you negative stuff, you're being a bully to yourself.
No, that's good. Thank you for your transparency about that. See, that inner you went from being bullied to the bully, and you had a lot of experience on how to become a bully if you've been bullied most of your life, right?
Exactly. I knew exactly what to do. I knew how to get you. And I would say how I was a bully to other people was, I would purposely gaslight you. And the one way that I would do it was, I would say something and I would know that the one of the only real comebacks that you would have would be my cleft. But it's like, you can't call my cleft because I have a disability. And I'm like, that is manipulative. You can't do that. You cannot. Now, knowing what I know about what a bully is, I'm like, that you can't do that. You can't do that.
Wow, so you have experience on both ends. Now, I really want to know, what was that pivotal moment? Because now you're out here trying to help people. So how did you go from being a whole bully to helping people? Like, what was that moment for you?
It was when you were doing your introduction and I was shaking my head, you said something, that shift of your thinking. When I turned 26, 28, I remember really just wanting to prepare for 30. I don't know why, but I don't know. All growing up, I had always heard about 30 is the year. 30 is the year when it all comes together. So I was like, okay, again, remember, I don't mind change if I have time for prepare. So I'm like, okay, I got to prepare. And so I started to assess like where I was, how I was. And one thing that I realized was like, if I were to die tomorrow, I don't know if I would like what people would say about me. I don't know if I would like that how people felt that they experienced me. What was their experience of me? So with that, I was like, okay, well, what does that mean? And for a year straight, I call it social confinement. I put myself in social confinement. So I would go to work, go to church, and go home. And with that, I spent a lot of time by myself. And when you do that, so I guess I did social distancing before it was cool, but a lot of people are seeing when you have a lot of time by yourself, things come out. Those traumas that you think you are over with, they come out. And it's like, oh, we can talk now? Oh, hey, girl. And so I remember
because it's there. It's like waiting for you to be like, listen, can we get this together, Iva?
They were ready. They were ready. I had 5 journals and I would just be writing out the feelings, writing out the emotions, writing out everything. Because that was the experiment that I did. I was like, I had to write out every negative thing that ever popped in my head or every bad thing. So it was both with my Cleft and with my father. And there'd be times where I'd be watching TV and just would be bawling. Nothing sad is on TV, just stuff that I had never fully mourned or let out or emotions, because I realized those 10 years I was numb. That's a long time to be numb. And when that feeling comes back, it's overwhelming. It's just like if anybody's had major surgery. Yeah, you get those nice medications and you're numb, but the moment you stop taking that medication, that pain comes back hard. And that's what happened.
Wow, that's powerful. Your accountability is amazing. And so you went through this journey and was able to work on your healing process. It was a whole journey. When did you decide you wanted to do the work that you're currently doing now?
So after I had done that, and I was a year into it of like just being this new person, and the remarks that people were giving, like they're like, you're different, but you're the same. That was a lot of what I was getting. You're different, but you're the same. You're different, but you're the same. And so I was like, well, what do you mean by that? And they're just like, your core is the same, but you just seem just so joyful, like things don't bother you, things don't stick to you. And I had a coworker she was like, I know that you're not on no drugs, but whatever you got, give it to me.
I say to people, that's what starts to happen when you start changing. People are gonna be like, what is you on? Like, what are you on?
And so it didn't help. At the same time, I had lost a lot of weight because I had
they thought you was sick.
Yes. And so like my family was like, are you on crack? And I'm like, no, I'm just happy and I'm getting my life together. Sorry, guys.
I swear when Black people lose weight, they swear we sick.
And that's why I was like, y'all didn't tell me that I was an orca well up in here. Like y'all, like I have always been a thick person. That's fine. I don't mind. I'm not trying to be that, but it was unhealthy and nobody said nothing to me. Well, you look good. I appreciate that, but it wasn't healthy. I don't mind being big as long as I'm healthy. That was not healthy. So I lost weight and I'm feeling good. And so with that, a lot more people started to ask, okay, what's going on? And I really came to the conclusion. I was like, okay, now that I have found my own, I want to help other people. I want to help other people get that. I'm not giving you mine, because mine is my own, but yours is yours. And I think, especially in today's world, a lot of us, especially if you are like me, growing up in the South, very traditional background, you have these rules. And it's like, but sometimes those rules can be trappings. And so what's the real, that's the real you. Let's polish that up a little bit. And once you do that, you can get to the joy of who you are.
Yes. Can you just talk a little bit about the trappings when you say that sometimes those rules can be trappings? Because I think people get fixated on certain things and not knowing how to step out of it.
So for me, the trapping that I had put on myself was, or not even myself, but it just, I grew up, I knew I had a cleft. And yes, my mother would always tell me, Iva, you have a cleft, but the cleft doesn't have you. But for those 10 to 12 years, the cleft had me, and I was trapped in that. I was trapped in that cycle. I was trapped in that narrative that I kept telling myself. All people see is my cleft. All I am is my cleft. Just the thoughts. And I had trapped myself into that. And I just was like, okay, I no longer want to be trapped. And that's one thing that I coach is that you're only stuck if you want to be stuck. And that's in anything. If anybody takes nothing else from this, if you feel stuck, you are. I'm not going to sit here and say that you're not, but you've also made a choice to stay stuck. Because if you can acknowledge that you're stuck, that means you know, and you haven't done anything about it.
Mm-hmm. I always tell people that feeling stuck and being stuck are two different things. And a lot of times we go off of how we feel, and we always have a choice. But because some of us didn't have a way to exercise our choice, we stay stuck in that mindset. So it's good to hear. And I love the fact that you're not just saying that without background. You're sharing your story so people can know that, like, it's not easy. It's not like you're just saying, like, get out of being stuck.
No, and I will, like, I saw the thing about my accountability. That's one thing that I had to get real about. I cannot sit here and complain, because during that 10-year of trapping, I was a complainer. Oh, I love to complain because that was easy. That was an easy choice. To choose to complain is an easy choice.
Yes.
Okay. But let's go do the hard thing.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, I don't want to do that. I don't want to do that. Okay, well, then you want to stay stuck.
Yes.
I'm not stuck either. All right, let me go do it.
Uh-huh.
And you start to do that one by one, and you'll get a momentum of it. So that now, we all have ruts. Life is a marathon. Even if I get a slow groove for a minute, I still have that inner, well, I don't want to stay here, so I guess I got to keep on moving.
Yes, I love that. And I always tell people we can get comfortably uncomfortable, so we can get comfortably uncomfortable being stuck. And so you got to work on shifting your mindset in order for that to change. Now you're doing this work, and then the pandemic happens. And tell me a little bit about what life looked like for you, like during the pandemic.
So as we just talked about, that accountability and being stuck. So I am a person, I like to roam and free. That was actually one of the ways that I found my own real sophisticated joy, was through travel. So for the pandemic to come and to be in one place for 6-7 months was interesting. My friends and family would be like, oh, so you haven't traveled? By now you would have been on at least 1 or 2 internationals. So I was like, I know. So I have to do something. So I like to say that I got pregnant during COVID. And what I mean by that is I had a book. I'd always said that I wanted to write about my book, about being bullied and what that means and how to help other people. So I have pushed out this baby. Yes, that is my book, Bully Who. Thank you so much. I'm an authoress. And that was actually, we talk about like a vision board. That was on my vision board for 2020. So I am very happy to be able to have pushed that baby out despite the year that was 2020.
Congratulations on the book. That's hard. I know, you're dealing with all of the things around life changes. And I always tell people, like, I think some people are in different places in this journey, especially during this year. But some people are able to do a little bit more. And it sounds like you were able to do it. Tell people about the book.
It is a how-to guide to recognize who's bullying you and who you're bullying. And in the book, I just talk about inner bullying, so self-bullying. I share a little bit more about my journey and what I went through. I also talk about family bullying, because that is a very big thing, especially in the Black and Brown communities, especially right now where you are being forced to be at home with loved ones that you may not have spent that much time with, and learning like, hey, we might need to have a conversation about how we're interacting with each other. It'd be a real conversation that we need to have. I also talk about friendship bullying and ways of recognizing that maybe this friend is not a friend.
This is huge. Like the inner bullying, to just start with, is something I always tell people, there's no enemy within you than what's outside of you. And I think so many people are walking around with this self-dialogue around everything that was said to them, that they experienced, that did not go processed. And so trying to, quiet the noise has been so challenging. So then you have that bully, but then some of the relationships people are in, not just romantic, but like you said, family and friends. Like, this book is huge for people that may be struggling with trying to navigate, because it's one, people be like, oh, just say no. Or I say, that's hard when you're not used to doing that. Do you kind of help people like dissect that part, so it's not just like, just say no?
I do, because I talk about that in the book. I used to be a big ghoster. I would be the first person, because it was hard. My natural self, I don't like conflict. I'm not a confrontational person. But I began to realize me not kicking up stuff would make people think that they could just talk to me any kind of way. And at the time, I didn't think about it while I was trapped, because I was so used to talking to myself internally any kind of way. So when somebody on the outside talked to me any kind of way, it didn't even register. I'm like, okay, girl, cool. But now you could not have that same conversation with me. You can't have that same interaction with me. So I do teach other people how to do the same. And you don't always have to pop off. Now, sometimes God ain't through with me yet. That is the only way. But it's not bullying still. I will teach you how to not be a bully about it. But you would definitely stand your ground, set your boundaries, and be clear.
Yes.
Because
I love it.
One more thing I want to add. It is toxic of you not to tell someone that they are doing something wrong to you.
Tell people why. That's good. I never said that, but I like it.
Because I definitely subscribe to this. If you don't tell me, I don't know. I don't know. Sometimes I truly do not know. Now, I do the 3 strikes. I'll tell you once. I will tell and explain twice. Third time, there's nothing to say. You don't have to say anything at the third time, because obviously they mean that. That's fine. But if you've never said anything, that's toxic on you. How are they supposed to know?
Yeah, that's true. And I want to point out, I just kind of want to highlight Iva's journey that she just talked about in regards to her being able to change her inner dialogue. So what's happening inside, what tends to happen outside starts to not match the inside. So now it's like, you're going to be forced to address some of the issues, because the way you treat yourself is typically how you will see people around you treat you, because it's a normal thing. If you're talking down to yourself, then you're in relationships that's like that. But then when you start to take care of yourself, if somebody's talking down to you, it's going to be like, oh, hold on, wait a minute now. That becomes foreign, right?
And I talk about that because I've actually had 2 clients who the last 2 steps for them were the hardest, because they were like, well, I feel like I don't have any friends now. And I say, yeah, that probably does happen, because I know it happened to me. A lot of my circle changed, but then I had to challenge them. And I was like, well, why do you, I'm not going to give you the answers. Why do you think that changed? And she said it. She was just like, because now I'm confident enough to speak back. And I said, yeah. So they were friends with you as long as you didn't talk back, which is something that you had already learned. So do you want to be friends with somebody who's only friends with you if you don't talk back? If that is what you want, that's fine. But you need to be clear on that. Again, it always goes back. If that's the real relationship that you want, okay, you can build around that and you can get sophisticated in what that means for you and find the joy in that. But if you're saying that that's not what you want, yeah, that friendship's going to end.
And Iva, I feel like I do a disservice to people when I talk about change, but not talk about the lonely part. That example you just gave is literally why people tend to go backwards and deal with people, because it feels lonely not to have them, right?
No, it feels lonely and familiar. And lonely and familiar will get you in trouble. Let me tell you. Lonely and familiar will get you in trouble. Go ahead and try lonely and not familiar. It's going to feel lonely for a minute, but the thing is, you won't be alone forever. If you go do the unfamiliar, you will not be alone forever. You won't. I promise you. You can even realsophisticatedjoy@gmail.com. Do it for a whole 6 months and we can talk, but it's not going to happen.
Yes, I love that. I love everything that you're doing. Now, people are going to be listening to this on the audio and they're loving what you're saying. Tell people a little bit how somebody would be able to work with you, or what you do as a coach.
So as a coach, I have a 6-week program. It's called The Real Sophisticated Joy of You.
Wait, sorry. How did you come up with that name? I meant to ask you that.
So
I love that name, but how did you come up with that name?
It went back to the writing experience. And the final thing that I did was I had written out all of the bad, right? And I was like, ooh, I don't like any of this stuff. So I love to read. And I happened to read, I forget what book, it forgets me now. But one of the questions that it asked was, if you could only be remembered for 3 words. So that meant at your funeral, people could only say 3 words to describe you. Everybody's going to get up and they're going to tell their story about you, but they can only use those words. And I was like, okay. And I came up with the real sophisticated joy.
That is definitely you.
Right. And then when it came that, I was like, okay. But also the beauty about doing that exercise is I was always real, but I will admit I was not always sophisticated. I needed some polishing up, whether it be the wardrobe, whether it just be my inner self. I need some polishing. And I also needed a little bit more joy. But as I made that my word and that my description, I stepped into that. So I challenge people who are listening to that. What 3 words do you want to be spoken at your funeral? And if you are not those words yet, what can you do today or tomorrow to get you closer to that?
I love that. I love it. Thank you for sharing that part. All right. So I want to know what real sophisticated joy, what that embodies, that practice that you're currently having.
So I love it. It's a 6-week program. And then we can go past that if you need it, but it is a 6-week program where we get down to the real of you. That first week is a very long week. It is a very long week. Then after that, we go and we move into sophistication. And what does that mean? Who do you want to be? Whether it be that you are a clefty, and how do you want to see yourself compared to how you see yourself? We actually flip everything that we did. All the negative from the first week, we flip it. And it is very interesting because I let them go at it that first week. Go at it. But we have to flip it that next. So we spend a lot of time on sophistication and doing that inner polishing that I talk about. And then the last 2 is the joy. How do you find your joy? What does joy mean to me? And I always like to refer back to, this is from my older generation a little bit, Runaway Bride. If you guys have ever seen it, she didn't even know what type of eggs she liked. If you don't know, so it's kind of like, what brings you joy? I should be able to ask you that, and you should be able to tell me at least 3 things that bring you joy and make you happy.
We can go even back to Coming to America.
Hello. Like you gotta know. That is inner. Because once you do that, you can always go back to that. Like they say, happiness is a feeling, it's fleeting, but joy, you may not wake up with it, you may not go to bed with it, but at least one part of your day. And I know I'm guaranteed that some days are hard, some days are bad, but every day I have my real sophisticated joy. And so like my clients get that too. That is the most beautiful thing. So that's the main thing. I do the coaching. And then also I do motivational speaking for schools and universities, and just now started to do corporate because you also do need real sophisticated joy on the workforce.
Yes, you do. Now, if somebody's not a clefty and because what you're saying speaks to me and speaks to so many people I know that are not clefties. If somebody's not a clefty, would you still be able to work with them?
Yes, I do. I still work with non-clefties. Like I said in the very beginning, everyone has a disability. Yours just might be internally. It does not matter if you are trying to build your confidence, whether it just be personally or on the workforce, because I do have 10 years experience in corporate America. So, and I know how to handle that world too. Yes, I can coach you. I am your coach. And I love to say that I don't mind being a cheerleader. I'm your coach. If I have to get down there with you and be your trainer, we do it together, because my journey is not done yet.
I love it. You're so amazing. One thing before you let people know how they can reach you, I always ask my guests, if somebody's listening and they are feeling inspired by your story or feeling stuck, what advice would you give to them? I'm so into really thinking about what can I do right now in this moment. And I love to hear everybody's perspective around it, because I feel like it hits people different ways.
I'm going to give them 2 assignments. The first one, just for 3 days, write out your thoughts. And then you tell yourself whether or not you're a bully. That's the first one. And then I do want you to go back and tell me those 3 words that you want to be said at your funeral. And, it's just in our society, it's like, you got to really think about those words. Those are the words that they're going to speak at your funeral and possibly put on your tombstone. So that's going to be your finite. Like, that's it. What are those 3 words? And I want you to send it to me in an email, realsophisticatedjoy@gmail.com. Those are your 2 assignments. Write out your inner thoughts for a whole 3 days, and you tell yourself if you're a bully. I'm not going to say yes or no. You tell me, like, yeah, girl, I'm a bully. No, I'm not. Fine. And then tell me the 3 words that you want spoken at your funeral.
I love it. And the power in that is self-awareness. And when we become self-aware of what's happening, we start to gain control. But a lot of us are on autopilot. So in sessions, I hear people talk and I say, you just said that, and they don't realize it. But I'm like, imagine how much you're saying that in your head over and over again.
And the thing is, once you do that, because I'm not going to sit up here and say that I still don't do it. You do. You're human. But you hear it and you're like, that ain't even true. Like, and now it's funny. Or when someone does say something, because I will admit, even still at 32 years old, I still do have people who might see me and say something about my cleft and like will be like, oh, she's ugly. And I'm like, girl, you lying. When I was younger, that would have sent me on a spiral for a whole week. But that's because I now have my inner voice. My inner voice is no longer a bully, so I don't. And also, I've noticed that bullies can't come to me like that anymore. And I'll talk about that in the book. You don't realize how much you make yourself a great victim to a bully if you are already bullying yourself.
Yes, that's good. And what you're doing with teaching people these methods is really getting them back into the driver's seat of their life. Because a lot of people don't even know how that starts. And I think it really starts with us. And I think that a lot of people can't even recognize the fact that they're a bully. And so kind of when we get to that aha moment, and then you start to realize it's not about the way Iva treats me or anybody else. I got to start treating myself differently, right?
Yes, you will lose friendship. I do not want to leave here without letting people know that because I want you to know, because it's like you'll start to realize, oh no. But that's because you've allowed it, because that's what you're used to, because that's what and it's one of those things where people can tell it to you all the time about what you allow. People can only do what you allow, but it's deeper than just that. You allow it because you're doing it to yourself. I think that's the part that the silent part of the sentence that people need to say. You allow it because it doesn't seem foreign to you because you are already doing it. So once you start to cut that off of yourself, you will not allow other people to do it. Because especially us women, we like to say, my own daddy don't eat. Because I was even still like, my daddy didn't yell at me. So you're not finna talk to me crazy. My mama don't talk to me crazy. You're not finna talk. So it's the same thing. If you can quickly say that, you should also say, I don't talk to me crazy. So you're not going to talk to me crazy.
But that Southern accent came out when you said it like that. You were like, listen, you brought it back to your roots.
Because see that again. So that's when I made, like I said, I'm very honest and transparent. Real is in the front part of that. Real is up in there first, okay?
That's right.
I'm nice, I'm sophisticated, and I'm really joyful, but now I can stand firm. Don't try me. Don't do that.
I love it. You are amazing. Let people know how they can reach you. And also, if this is an ebook, so they can get it right off the website?
Right off of our website of www.realsophisticatedjoy.com. And then there's also mugs right over here. You can get your Real Sophisticated Joy coffee mug. So when you spilling that tea, make sure you up with some Real Sophisticated Joy. And then also we have merchandise, which is the Real Sophisticated Joy t-shirt. And on the back, it says, what if joy is my only metric of success? Think about that.
Yes, that's
joy is your only metric of success. Yeah, I measure my day. That's how I measure my metric. Was today a successful day? Did I have joy today? Yes, today was successful.
That's good. You're redefining what success looks like and not taking it what society says it should look like. It's a completely different process.
My quote this is my quote. So if you use this guy, you got to use my name.
I will quote you, I promise.
But success is for others. Being great is for you.
Yes.
Because if I'm going to be successful, I got to have some joy in it. I got to do it my way. So yes, to others, I'm going to be successful. That's fine. I'm going to be successful for me, but I got to that's going to be joyful. That's got to be. But that's going to make me great for others.
That's good.
I'm going to be great for other people.
Oh, that's so good. Thank you so much for your transparency and everything that you do. I haven't had a person that came on to talk about bullying, and it's a real thing. I never thought about like utilizing, because the inner critic and bullying sounds like, man, I need to get my life together. I got to stop bullying myself.
It's the same. And I talk about that in the book, because just like harassment, workforce harassment is bullying.
Yes. So I appreciate you so much. For everybody listening to the audio, you can go to the show notes to find everything and to connect with Miss Iva. So Miss Iva, thank you.
Thank you for having me, and thank you guys. Please do those assignments. They really will be like an eye-opening for you. And that'll be a great Christmas present to yourself.
I know. I'm going to get the book because I think it's going to help me have some language around what you say just speaks to me, but this is like your specialty, right? Mm-hmm. So I feel like it's going to help me have some language when I'm dealing with my clients. So
yes, because I don't want to give all the way, but I actually take references that everybody or most people know, and I'm like, oh, that was bullying there. There are certain movie classics that you would never, like, you don't know, oh, that's bullying. So I break down what the actual definition of what bully is, so that way you can know. And by the end of the book, that was one review that I got. She was like, I at least know from now on, I know what bullying means. Because if you don't know what it means, again, if you don't know something, you don't know it.
Yes, yeah, especially if you're so used to being in that environment. Girl, you already got one customer. I'm sold. I'm about to get this book.
It is, that's one thing that I love to hear people say, because first off, I know about spending your money on something. So I wanted to make sure that it is something that is meaningful and helpful, and that it is going to be transformative and move the needle for you. So get the book. I promise you it's gonna be something for you.
Thank you. Thank you so much.
You're welcome.
I will talk to you later.
Good night, guys. Thank you so much.